Welcome back to the Rookie Numbers Podcast. This week we've got a bundle of topics for you guys. First off, we're going to be talking about Jaylen Brown's new contract and the future of superstar contracts in the NBA. We'll also be debuting a brand new game show featuring NFL over-under lines. And lastly, we'll be discussing the upcoming MLB trade deadline. This is episode 2. Let's get to it. So unfortunately, as you may notice, we're without Peter tonight. He's on the 10-day IL.
Just a shame. Illness got him. I think it's just not enough grit and or sandpaper to get here, and it's a ish him.
I'll tell you, I think he was really scared of the takes we're going to have today.
I think
he did not want
terrified.
to get into the kitchen.
He did not want to
get this episode
bullied back into his seat after
you know what?
we questioned.
You know what? You gotta respect that, because if you're not coming with 100% effort into these episodes, you're just gonna get cooked alive.
Hey, exactly. That's how it is. This is when you step on our set. This is the hot seat.
Yeah,
right here.
if you give out some of that malarkey that I don't want to hear, I'm gonna let you know about it. And sometimes Peter crosses the line.
All right. So our first topic tonight is Jaylen Brown and his mega deal. So earlier this week, Jaylen Brown and the Celtics agreed to a 5-year, $304 million extension. It's by far the biggest deal in NBA history. Thoughts?
You know, in the NBA, that's just kind of how the contracts work. In no right world, if there wasn't a salary cap, will Jaylen Brown ever be paid that amount, especially after his playoff performance? But as a GM, that's just the deal you have to make with the circumstances given, in my opinion.
Right, it is a massive deal, and is Jaylen Brown worth it? I mean, it's only Jaylen Brown.
I get why they felt like they need Jaylen Brown. I think he's a very important piece for that Celtics roster. He's a big part of that
and
core.
A podcast legend.
He is a podcast legend, Jaylen Brown.
Former Nathan Wilt, most underrated player in the NBA.
However, I think the contract's a little absurd. But I get why they had to do it. I understand it. But we're starting to bridge into soccer money territory, and that's just disgusting.
I'd like to state that he is no longer my most underrated player in the NBA, because the most underrated player in the NBA cannot be making $300 million over 5 years and $69 million in his last year. That will not happen, and I will not let that take fester anymore in the community.
Right. So let me go through just the year by year how much he's going to be making here. And it starts in the 2024-25 season. That's when it kicks in. $52.3 million on this debut year in the extension. By 2028-2029, $69 million in one season for Jaylen Brown, a guy who is a second best player on any team he'll be on.
Yeah.
I mean, it sucks. It really does that you have to pay him that much money, but it's the landscape of the NBA. We're soon going to see in a few years when Nikola Jokic is due for an extension, we're going to see a $400 million one, and I don't know what that last year is going to look like. I'm not a math guy, never claimed to be. That's going to be a lot of money. So I think this contract by year 5, not going to be a good one, but not going to be looked at as crazy as it is right now.
Right, and Trent brought it up earlier. What else do the Celtics do here? And that's, I think, is a big thing that factored into my opinion on the contract. It's what were the Celtics supposed to do? They had a few options.
Yeah.
Let Jaylen Brown walk. Why would you do that?
Yeah,
still an all-star, still a great player. You could have paid him this money, which they did, or you don't extend him and you trade him. But as we saw this offseason, they weren't getting James Harden. He didn't want to go to Boston. Damian Lillard is pretty much only going to the Heat, maybe off the table. What's going on with Damian Lillard? We have no idea. And he probably won't be traded for another 3 months. But it won't be to the Celtics.
Yeah.
Because the Blazers don't want Jaylen Brown, partially because of this contract. So what were the Celtics to do? I think this is probably the best option that they had on the table.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, that's just what's going to happen to these teams down the road is they're going to have to pay the players they have.
Right. CBS Sports predicts, actually, you mentioned the $400 million deal. CBS predicts Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be the first player to reach that in 2027, 2028.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. I love SGA, but in no right world should SGA ever make $400 million, and maybe even in his career.
Yeah.
Maybe he just scratches the $400 million barrier towards the end, but yeah, it's getting ridiculous, and with the CBA, I don't see it changing at all.
Yeah.
Which is It's just the numbers are gonna start to get a little crazy.
Right, and we're seeing that now, and you mentioned it's only going to go up.
Yeah.
It's really going to get crazy in the NBA soon.
Yeah, I mentioned soccer money earlier, and what you'll start to see is, Kylian Mbappe was just offered $700 million
And turned it down.
for 1
And
year.
turned it down.
Yes, and I don't think basketball's ever going to get to that level. It's just not globally as popular as soccer is. But you're gonna start to see that where stars are gonna be able to demand as much money as they want, and teams are either gonna have to pay them or they're not gonna have a good team anymore.
Well, I'll tell you, not to go down that rabbit hole, but it's going to get pretty worldwide soon.
Oh, I agree with
the
that.
NBA
yes.
is absolutely growing.
It's just not there yet.
Right, and these contracts are going to come with that.
Yeah.
And let me say, just quick, Kylian Mbappe, unless he gets an equally as mega deal,
It's so stupid.
is a profound idiot for turning down $700 million with an M dollars. After all the incentives and brand deals are up, $1 billion.
Yeah.
$1 billion, and he turned it down because of Saudi Arabian blood money.
Yeah.
I don't care where that money comes from. $1 billion is $1 billion. He could die, and his children's children will be living in a mansion eating filet mignon 5 courses a day.
I don't think he's gonna get $700 million, but he's gonna get a lot of money where he's going.
Right.
He's gonna be looking at $500-600 million contracts. It's not absurd, but you are right to turn down $700 million because he doesn't want to play in Saudi Arabia is absurd.
Just profound idiocy. I'm obviously an outsider looking in, not a European soccer guy, but the numbers to me don't add up.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, 10 years from now, Victor Wembanyama's children's will also be eating filet mignon every day because that's the way the NBA is going. So our second topic of the day is Jonathan Taylor and his beef with the whole entire Colts organization, which is pretty funny to me. So the other day, the former Pro Bowler met with the Colts organization to discuss a future extension and the overall state of the running back market. And from all reports, it sucked. It went horribly. So bad, in fact, that minutes after the negotiation ended, he requested a trade from the Colts. Thoughts?
I can't say I'm super surprised that something like this is happening with a high-profile back. I just didn't expect it to be him necessarily. But, I think it's pretty stupid. I think he's going to get either... Irsay has said he's not going to trade him. He does not plan on trading him. And as far as we know, I don't think Jonathan Taylor necessarily is going to play. And I know right now he's on the UPT. Is that what he's on right now?
Yeah.
So he's not practicing. He's not going to get touches before the year. So if he does play, he's coming in cold, which is only going to hurt his value. So.
Well, yeah, like you said, Irsay said he's not going to trade Taylor, and historically he's been one of the most hard-ass owners, and, he's not a guy that's going to budge on this, and, why should he? Jonathan Taylor's not going to hold out.
Yeah, no.
He's going to play, just like every other running back is going to play, even if it's for $8 million less than they wanted.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I really don't like what the Colts are doing. Just
oh, no, it's terrible.
It is terrible.
I think the Colts as a franchise is one of the most bleak situations in football right now. Because I don't believe in Anthony Richardson.
No.
I'll put it out there.
No.
I don't believe in him, and I don't believe in the place that killed Andrew Luck to make this guy into a good quarterback. And I think Jonathan Taylor's smart for not wanting to play. Because last year it looked like he was about to die as soon as he touched the ball. The only guy that I think actually... I don't even know the statistics on this, but Quentin Nelson was about, was a Pro Bowl guard, and he was not even mentioned in discussions after that season. Something has to go terribly wrong if you're not injured and your play has gone down that bad.
Yeah. Right. And as someone who drafted Jonathan Taylor #1 overall, despite, and I'll tell you what, during my draft, I was like, I don't know. Everyone was telling me, gotta draft Jonathan Taylor. He had a terrible season. It was terrible. Why does he deserve $18 million a year? And that's something I think that you would have to talk about in this meeting is, looking back on last season, why do you think Jonathan Taylor deserves an extension?
Yeah.
Because he's making, $10 million right now.
Yeah.
He had that amazing season, we all saw it, we all remember it. He doesn't deserve money off of one season.
No.
As a GM, as an owner, you're not going to pay Jonathan Taylor. I don't even know if I could get value for Jonathan Taylor, I'd probably trade him right now where the Colts are at.
Yeah.
I don't think that he can even get really an extension reasonably from the Colts.
But that's the thing. In a trade, you're not going to get valuable draft picks.
Exactly.
You're going to get, it's kind of like the DeAndre Hopkins trade. You're going to get a David Johnson level player and, a sixth-round pick or whatnot.
Yeah,
At that point, I don't think it's worth it to trade Jonathan.
And, Gruden isn't in the league anymore, so it's not like you can fleece someone like that. Most of the guys that we've seen make bad trades aren't there anymore, so I think it's going to be really hard for these teams to
the
make
Commanders
like
being a possible option, and, they're under new ownership, so no more fleecing the Commanders.
No more fleecing the Commanders, at least that we know of right now.
Well, Peter's on his hands and knees begging and pleading that they do not make that trade.
Peter's sitting at home listening. He was waiting for the Commanders shout-out.
Oh,
Here it is.
Here it is.
Just, the Commanders are a terrible organization, and that's the shout-out.
I can't wait for fifth-round pick Sam Howell to really go crazy against the Eagles this year. Just can't wait to watch that.
I'm waiting for the Sam Howell apology form to come out
Oh,
after
yeah.
week 1.
So, we talked about the running back market last week, and, it's still not getting any better. It does look like Ezekiel Elliott is possibly going to sign with the Patriots, Dalvin Cook to the Jets. But still, I don't think that helps the situation at all. Every team still has 2 running backs right now that are just about as good as each other, and that's going to reflect in the Jonathan Taylor extension, because we saw Pollard and the other running backs not reach extensions. There's no reason Jonathan Taylor will with his team.
Yeah, I mean, just a tough spot for JT.
Yeah.
Our second topic of the day is a fun little game that we just invented called Nate's College Fund. This is a new segment we created where we'll give each other over-under lines via Vegas odds and discuss. This is not gambling advice, and as minors, we do not participate in illegal sports gambling. This is Nate's College Fund. All right, Nate, my first line for you, Steelers over-under 8.5 wins.
I don't know if you can tell, but I'm wearing the Steelers hat today, so I'm hitting the over. FanDuel's giving out free money, which I will not be taking as a minor, but they're giving out free money this year for Mike Tomlin to do what he's done 20 times before, to go over 8.5 wins for the 500 season.
Right, I like the Steelers roster. I think they're a sleeper. Maybe it won't happen. They're a sleeper to even win the AFC North.
I think they have just as good a shot as anyone else. The Bengals, I think, have a leg up for sure.
Absolutely.
But the Steelers are right there with them. And with Kenny Pickett revamped offense, I mean, Kenny Pickett, last 7 games, looked phenomenal for those who did not watch the Steelers games. Mm-hmm. Great weapons. They even added on to the core of weapons. Yeah. And, of course, the legendary stout Steelers defense with the best safety in the league, Minka Fitzpatrick. Hopefully, knock on wood, a healthy TJ Watt. Cam Hayward's still in his prime, and we're going to be looking to take over the AFC.
Right. The last 7 games or whatever it was last year and this year's training camp, they're looking solid.
They're looking solid.
And I'll tell you what, I like the Steelers in the playoffs this year.
I mean, Mike Tomlin's a proven coach. Great defense. Defense wins championships. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Bryson, my line for you is Eagles over under 11.5 wins.
Now, I like this one. As an Eagles fan, I'm trying to approach it, realistically, but also confidently. I think they're going to go over just slightly. I can see 12, maybe 13 wins for this team. With their free agency losses, people were looking at the roster like, is this team that good? Are they still a 12-plus win team? I think so. I think they majorly improved with the draft, and even with free agency too. This defense is about as good as it was last year. Losing Gardner Johnson is going to hurt. But on offense, you're running it back with the same guys. I think with a better backfield too, with Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, I don't see why this team can't get 12 wins this season.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the only thing you're worried about is, kind of a Super Bowl hangover type situation. You lost a few of your core pieces too. So I think they might be a little slow out the gate once teams kind of figure out Jalen Hurts a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like we saw with Cam Newton after they made it to the Super Bowl. I see a lot of parallels between those two teams. But I really do think the Eagles have a real shot at getting back there again. There's no reason to think they won't have at least 12 wins.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a more rocky season than last year, where we kind of cruised undefeated for a while. I think, like you said, it might start out rough. You know, they have a tough schedule this year, but 12 wins certainly is doable for this team.
I mean, they've got a target on their back, so they really got to prove themselves this year.
Right. All right, Nate. My next line for you: Dolphins over under 9.5 wins.
I really like the Dolphins roster and their explosive offense. I think it hinges mainly on Tua's health. And if he can stay healthy, they're smashing this 10 wins. And I think they have a reasonable run to get to the win of the division. I really think they do. I see the Jets, they're good. Bills obviously good. This team's offense is electric. We saw that last season. 2 of the best receivers in the league. Tua, extremely underrated quarterback in my opinion. And their defense majorly improved this offseason. I really don't see why this team can't make some serious noise. If Tua gets hurt, things could go south. Mm-hmm. But I see them as a definite 10-win team. I'm smashing the over.
Right. Like you said, Tua's health, major impact to this team. And Jalen Ramsey also is going to miss a few games to start the season. But still, this defense is too improved for me to, not back this team.
Yeah.
I think they get 10-plus wins pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree. I think this offense is really fun to watch, and I'm excited to see if Tua can take another step forward, how much more that can unlock for this team offensively.
Right.
Yeah,
Dolphins are going to be crazy good this year.
And they also have that great early season home field advantage when it's like 1 billion degrees in Florida and teams in Detroit are sweating their balls off going down there. So I think Miami can get off to a hot start. Hot teams stay hot, and they'll carry that through for at least a 10-win season. Trent, my line for you is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over under 6.5 wins.
I think they barely scrape the over. I think they'll win 7 games, and it's for me it hinges purely on Baker Mayfield. I'm a Baker Mayfield believer. I love Baker Mayfield. So it's hard for me to say I don't think he can make it work. I think for at least 7 games they can get a win, but that is their absolute ceiling is 7 wins. I think if they win any more than 7 games, I will take all the money out of my bank account and pay Baker Mayfield personally.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to disagree with you though. I love the Baker Mayfield love. Saw him get to play a lot of years. I had no problem with him. Thought he was a solid quarterback. I just don't see it with his supporting cast. Obviously he has those great receivers we all know of. But their line's gone to crap. Yeah. Their defense is terrible. They're bloated. Their coach is unproven. The salary's all over the place. I just don't see this team getting 7 wins.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Nate here. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. I feel like, again, as a Baker Mayfield supporter, I love the guy as a player, but I don't think he can pull this bad of a roster to 7+ wins.
Yeah. If any, to be fair, Baker always plays his best when his back is against the wall, and no one believes in him.
That is classic Baker Mayfield.
So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm saying that Baker is going to have a bounce back.
But not actually, because we do.
Yeah, no, we do not gamble.
We
do not gamble here.
We do not gamble.
Bryson, my second over/under take for you is Chiefs over under 11.5 wins.
How could you not bet the over on this one? The Chiefs are, at this point, a dynasty in NFL history. I am smashing 12+ wins for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have the weapons that he used to. He still has Travis Kelce. That's all you need. The defense is still good enough, I think. The line is slightly improved. I love this team's over.
I have a hard time agreeing with it. Obviously, it's Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid, greatest coach of all time. It's definitely possible. I think this might be a fall off year. Not saying they're not making the playoffs or anything crazy like that. Their division definitely got harder.
Yeah.
Team a little bit tired after all these postseason runs. They didn't really get much better either in the offseason. So I think this could be a little bit of a fall off year to a 10, maybe 11-win team. I think it's a sweat either way of the line, either side of the coin. So I'm just going to have to disagree, but
definitely a possible outcome. Like you mentioned, Broncos, I think, are majorly improved.
Yep.
This was a team who we thought was Super Bowl contenders last year based on the roster. They have one of the best coaches in recent years, in Sean Payton, and an improved roster. They're going to give the Chiefs a run for their money, kinda, but I think Chiefs win this division with 12+ wins.
I think the rest of the AFC just continues to get better and is slowly catching the Chiefs, and I think this is the year where we're going to see everyone else kind of make that.
You're taking the under too?
I am taking the under
Wow.
as well.
Tough,
yes.
just too tough of a schedule. I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoffs. Never said that. Once they get in the playoffs, I might even have them winning a Super Bowl. Just saying, I don't even know if they can win their division, so I have to take the under.
Our third and final topic of the day is about the upcoming MLB trade deadline. First, we're going to start with the Angels and Shohei Ohtani. A few days ago, they made the decision not to sell the roster. And this came as a surprise to many people because at the time they were about 8 games back from the final wild card spot in the AL. But they're slowly climbing back up, and as we've seen so far, they've been pretty big buyers.
Yeah, and I never hated this roster, especially with all the injuries they had. I could have seen a lot of upside with this squad. It was just questionable to put all of that and potential prospects you could have got for Shohei and have a generational team in the future for a chance to make the playoffs now.
Right. So as we know, they traded for pitcher Lucas Giolito and CJ Crone, who I think are big pieces.
Yeah,
big
very
pieces to
very
the squad.
sizable pieces. You get an up and down starter. He's all over the place, but when he's good, he's really good. So it's along with their gambling, they have a gambling issue, so someone should probably help them. CJ Crone is a solid bat for a position of need, I think, for them. Which I love all the moves they've made. It's just if going down in history, is this really the right move for them?
Right. You have to wonder where Shohei's going this offseason. That plays a big part in it, obviously. Yeah. But I don't think it's a bad move to go all in on possibly your final year with him, a deciding year whether he stays for the next possibly 8 to 10 years.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty smart to buy in and try to make the playoffs with this team.
I get the move. I understand why they're doing it. I think realistically Shohei walks and you just lost him for nothing. But I get what they're trying to do. This team has not been anything for a long time. Like they're trying to get to at least give the fans a little bit of hope, if you will.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's not like the Angels don't try to win.
Yeah,
it's not like a poverty franchise. They've spent $1 billion in 10 years chasing big name free agents. Yeah. Just hasn't worked out for them. Right. It's just unfortunate for them, and Mike Trout especially.
Yeah.
But if Shohei stays, this is one of the greatest moves they could have made. Possibly like the best move they could have made.
Yeah.
Right. And right now, 5 games back in the division seems kind of out of reach because you have the Rangers and the Astros ahead of them. But they are 4 games back from the final wild card spot, like I mentioned.
The thing is, they're not winning that division.
Right.
We're going to get to it, but the Rangers made some very massive moves.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Astros are phenomenal. So they're not winning the division. If they get in the wild card, anything's possible. We saw the Phillies make it there last year from the last wild card spot. They just need to make the dance.
Right.
So it's just they gotta perform like the talent they have on the roster is, and everything will be fine.
Right, and moving on to the Rangers, I think that's a good segue into the Max Scherzer trade. The biggest move thus far, and possibly what will be the biggest move of this year's deadline.
Just a phenomenal move for the Rangers. The perfect move for them they could have made. They give up solid prospect, Ronald Acuna's brother, but one good prospect for a generational pitcher. Mm-hmm. He's had an up and down season, just like the Mets. So he can't really be blamed for that.
I think that just comes with playing with the Mets.
Exactly.
You're going to suck, and you're going to be good for a week.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes.
But I think Scherzer's going to come back to form with this new team and new playoff hopes in his horizon. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he agreed to the trade, so he wanted to go to the Rangers.
Right.
This is a great move for the Rangers. And they're not even eating the whole salary. The Mets are eating most of it.
Yeah. And that's a big part, too. They're only going to pay him, $20-some million. He's getting paid $30 million by other teams.
Exactly.
Right now. And it's a great move for the Rangers, who have kind of slipped in the division over the past few weeks, kind of losing their first place to the Astros, who I think will overtake the Rangers fairly soon here. But a great move for them. It's an ace that they needed. Moving on to our final team here is the Chicago Cubs. Now, they're another team like the Angels who decided not to sell this trade deadline. They've won 8 straight, first time since 2016. And I think the biggest news out of this is that they won't trade former MVP Cody Bellinger. They're about 500 right now, 4 games back in the division, and 3.5 games back from a wild race for the NL wild card right now. There's about 6 teams all right there. Is this the right move for the Cubs?
No, it's not. The Cubs are not good enough to win anything this year. Maybe win a wild card spot. If that's something to you, go ahead. But they're not doing anything in the postseason. This team has nothing to them, in my opinion. Like, their depth is bad. Their pitching is playing over their heads. Pitching's fine for the most part, but not trading Stroman and Bellinger is just wasting potential that you could just get to build down the road. This team is not winning now. They're not winning next year, and they might not win the year after that, so I don't understand the move to not sell.
Right, and I think it's something we need to see from this team where it's just capitalize on your good players now, get the most value you can out of them, and just move on. It's not working, just move on.
Baseball's a hard sport. So you're not going to be able to win every year.
Yeah.
It's a long season.
Yes.
As we know. You have to understand when it's your time and when it's not your time. Mm-hmm. The Cubs need to understand that it's not their time.
Right. In baseball, the MLB is not a league where you can just kind of float around and hope to catch on to something because the turnaround is just so high. Yeah. And, in an instant, you're going to lose your good players to fatigue and just old age. Yeah, and that's going to happen.
There's guys who fall down the stairs and their careers are over. They're playing, Guitar Hero for too long and their hand doesn't work anymore.
Right.
It's just the MLB and baseball players are so it's such a mental game, and there's just so much that could go wrong that you need to just open a window and you need to take it and just run with it. You need to know when your window is and when it's not. And the window's closed for the Cubs right now.
And that can be said about a lot of teams, which we will cover next episode. Next week we'll be covering the entire trade deadline, mostly every move, every little detail that we're not talking about right now. So I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to follow us wherever you're listening and on all our socials at Rookie Numbers Co. Again, that's at Rookie Numbers Co. on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week.